would my weekend look like without electric power? Not so good. And these are some of the solar panels that live on the rooftop of my house. And on an average day, they make more electricity than I consume. Unfortunately, when the grid is down, they don't make any electricity at all. Well, the inverter is designed to turn off when there's a problem with the grid. Okay, I'm an engineer. I have a solution. Batteries. Batteries for when the sun is not shining. And an inverter that's designed to work off-grid. So now I'm independent, and I can say goodbye to my electricity provider, and I don't have to care about what happens to the big grid. So, okay, the big grid is vulnerable, and my small survivalist grid is probably also not going to help me for very long. So maybe the solution lies somewhere in between, at the community scale. This is Corrales, New Mexico, and right now, a small percentage of electricity in Corrales is generated locally by about 100 rooftop solar installations, just like mine. If we want to make our community more resilient, we could start by adding more local generation. Solar is becoming cheaper and cheaper by the day, so this is happening. And while we're at it, we could also install some batteries. Microgrid is a self-contained electrical circuit that has its own power generation and its own loads. So one thing we have to understand about power systems is that generation has to be equal to consumption at any given time. Otherwise, the system crashes. The orange curve is generation from a few hundred solar rooftop installations, and the blue curve is consumption, power consumption. So when I disconnect from the grid, though, I have to make sure that the two curves end up matching. But what I can do is I can change the shape of the blue curve by controlling thousands of devices, like smart appliances, like batteries, like cars that are plugged in, electric cars that are plugged in for recharging. A couple of other things that need to be there for all of this to work. First of all, we need communication standards. And the second thing that we're going to need is a microgrid controller. So this is a device that, it's a computer that takes information from all these devices in the wilderness, what they're doing now, what they want to do in the next 5 minutes, next hour, and it makes some relatively complex calculations, and it dispatches their operation so that orange curve and blue curve end up looking the same. Great, but still, what's in it for me? Why should I care about any of this? Well, you can think about it as insurance policy. Insurance policy against something really big, really bad happening to the grid. And this is probably not a matter of if, it's more like a matter of when. If something like this happens, we really might end up eating our neighbor's pets. And on top of that, we get a cleaner environment, because these microgrids are able to absorb a whole lot more clean, renewable energy than the system the way it's set up right now. Let's embrace our clean electric future. Remember, insurance works better if everybody buys into it. So when we make a major purchasing decision, let's think about this. Let's think electric vehicle. Let's think smart appliance. Let's think home energy management system. Also, we could allow our utility companies, our local governments, our regulators to upgrade the shared infrastructure that's on the ground already. It may cost us a little bit more in the electric bill at the end of the month, but upgrading the electricity grid is something that we have to do. So let's start now, let's do it right. It's complicated, but it's going to be worth it. And it's going to be fun watching things change. And maybe we won't be worrying as much about waking up the next day to the breakdown of civilization.